From the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Midwest, you're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
He is risen. He is risen? We're not quite sure. Episode 63 of Beyond the Blast Doors. Welcome into our Star Wars conversation. David Amlani, one of your hosts. Joining with me is David Gilbert. David, episode 9. We have the title, we have footage, we've survived Star Wars Celebration. How you doing?
I am super excited, a little jealous I wasn't able to be at Star Wars Celebration with you and Jesse and the rest of the Beyond the Blast Doors crew when the news dropped. However, I can tell you that all the buzz is exciting here back home as we saw the trailer for the very first time around our office too.
Do you buy into He is risen? I mean, I'm making an Easter pun. We're releasing this episode on Easter, so I thought it'd be kind of funny. I mean, maybe that's an inside joke for me, but you know, do you think it is a case where he is risen, or do you think she is risen?
I don't think it's a resurrection type thing. I think this is where a Skywalker is going to become outrageously powerful, and maybe it's Luke, maybe it's Leia, maybe it's a third Skywalker that we don't know about, or maybe we've met, and that'll be another twist that comes our way. But I'm very, very excited. One of the things, David, that you and I talked about at our last episode before Celebration was we were all looking very forward to the fan service that we would get from Abrams with Episode 9 like we did out of Episode 7. So maybe this means that we're going to have a significantly larger presence from Mark Hamill, maybe as a Force ghost of some sort, leaving his imprint and inspiring the Resistance, now turned back into the Rebellion at the end of The Last Jedi. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of questions that this title raises, a lot of questions that this trailer raises, and I am very excited to see where we're going with this. You know, in JJ we trust. We should put that on our currency.
I'm pretty sure Black Series Rebels actually has that on their sticker.
Do they really?
Yeah, I got a sticker from them over at Celebration. It's really sharp. It's with JJ and like this like meditative position. I don't know. It's pretty funny. I'll show it to you later. You know, I'm thinking about the teaser, and I don't want to get ahead with speculation. So let's just go ahead and talk about The Rise of Skywalker. First things first, that title. How did that hit you? How did that land in your mind when you first heard or saw the text that it is The Rise of Skywalker?
Well, you know, honestly, David, it was kind of funny because we'd had a conversation when probably about 6 months ago when we first saw the title card for The Force Awakens. It was written in the yellow, and then we saw The Last Jedi. It was written in red, and you totally called it that the ninth movie title, the logo would be in blue. So that was really the first thing that kind of popped in my head, thinking of your prediction there. But it honestly sent a little chill down my spine. I got a little goosebumps as I heard that music and the Mark Hamill voiceover, which always gets me going. And then you see that The Rise of Skywalker, and immediately all these questions start popping into my head is, what does that mean?
At first, I really thought we should lead with like what happens in the teaser and then go into the title at the end because that's what you saw last. But there was so much anticipation just over the title of this movie because for months and months and months, we're like, when are they going to release the title? When are they going to release the title? No, they haven't even shown a teaser yet. And so I think that we go back and forth as fans figuring out, well, what should come first, the title or the teaser? We all kind of thought we would get the title first. We all thought the teaser was going to land before February. Like we thought like the latest they could show it would be Super Bowl. And then once it didn't happen at the Super Bowl, everyone just kind of like gave in like, okay, they're going to hold it till Star Wars Celebration, which I think ultimately gave the right response. You know, I think it was like 9 million views on YouTube by the end of day one. It's up to 25 million views now at the recording of this podcast. So excited to see how this is viewed around the world. Excited to see how, you know, the fans dive into this. There's already been a few folks that have gone frame by frame. We're not going to go as quite in depth, but we're going to have about a 30-minute conversation just about Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker teaser, talking about what we like, maybe what we didn't like. I don't think there's anything that we didn't like, but I think we're going to speculate quite a bit. And kind of like you've already heard us allude to, like, he is risen, like, The Rise of Skywalker, the Skywalker. What is Skywalker in Episode 9, the final installment of the Skywalker saga? That's what we heard J.J. Abrams. That's what we heard Kathleen Kennedy. That's what we heard so many of the actors, you know, when I think of Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and Oscar Isaac, they're all saying it is the end of the Skywalker saga. So it kind of makes sense to me that the final film would have Skywalker in it. I was on board with Balance of the Force, and I got a lot of flack for that from friends and folks on the internet, at least the ones that engage with me. But I thought it worked because I thought it was kind of all-inclusive of everything. I kind of felt like we were building up to balance in the Force with Episode 9. over this 9-film saga, but I digress. I do want to remind everyone, David, I want to remind you listening, I want to remind that you can find Beyond the Blast Doors on several platforms, and that includes iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. You can also find exclusive content when you subscribe to us on Patreon.com. Patreon.com/Beyond the Blast Doors. Also, a big shout out to our sponsor, the Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri, proudly serving St. Louis since 1981. They have everything. They have comics, they have books, they have toys, they have board games, Magic the Gathering, other collectibles. The Fantasy Shop, the best in comics and games in St. Louis since 1981, and the proud sponsor of our show. Really excited to dive into this, David. We get our first images of Episode 9 at Star Wars Celebration on that Friday. There are thousands upon thousands of Star Wars fans crowded around screens in Chicago. And, of course, millions of fans around the world huddled around their live stream of the Star Wars show.
So, David, the first thing we see is Daisy Ridley standing on some sort of sandy terrain. What is the first thing that pops out at you that you're thinking, whoa?
Well, the first thing that I notice, because I'm obnoxious in this way, is I'm looking at that lightsaber hilt. We had gotten an image that leaked several weeks ago that it looked like somehow the hilt of Skywalker had been fixed, and there was like this leather band around that. So I wanted to see if that was actually in the movie. And then you notice that she still has Han's blaster at her side. But it's that, I think it's just like hearing that screech of a fighter approaching.
I'm really excited for the lightsaber myself because there's been a lot of conversation over this since it turned back up in The Force Awakens, wondering how we got that lightsaber back after it fell at Cloud City. And then, of course, it was destroyed at the end of The Last Jedi. And I've got a little mixed feelings because it's kind of cool to see this legacy lightsaber come back, especially since we know that Rey tends to hold on to things that she finds sentimental, like Han's blaster. But a little part of me is a little disappointed that she didn't take the opportunity to use that kyber crystal to make her own lightsaber, which would have been really cool too. So there's got to be some sort of plot element that really revolves around the history, the Skywalker, the lightsaber, that she ended up rebuilding it the same way.
There is something to be said about the legacy of that hilt, and I think it's one of those just identifiable objects with Star Wars. You know, you've seen it in every movie but Return of the Jedi. And you look at, and Phantom Menace, so I want to correct myself there. But I'm with you. When we saw those leaked images a few weeks ago, I was like, all right, I guess they're really not doing the staff thing. And I felt like the entire time, that's what we were building up to. There was so much prominence on this staff. I think of that iconic shot in The Force Awakens where the staff is in the ground and Rey runs to it and grabs it, picks it up. I mean, I felt like all signs were pointing that we were going to get a Jedi with a double-sided blue lightsaber. And, what's more important at this stage of the game with Episode 9? Like, is it more important that hilt lives on or the crystal? Like, that Force object continue on? And with that being shattered like that, I was like down. I even thought more so we were going to get that double-edged, that double-sided lightsaber, something that we haven't seen since Phantom Menace.
Now, David, you know that I like to look at things from kind of like a statistical, analytical standpoint. And to me, it seems like over the last several years, Disney has taken every opportunity to merchandise the Star Wars franchise. We can see that from the Red Guard, the Praetorian Guard, how they decided to make them with different armor styles and get rid of the uniform and just have like 6 different varieties that kind of look like Power Rangers with different laser type weapons. So to me, there has to be something special with this lightsaber for them not to do something like a double-edged, double-bladed blue staff, because Disney would have been all over the marketing on that.
I do, but also Disney's also been very vocal about wanting to get away from the Skywalker saga. I think these core characters. So I guess milk it for all that it's worth now, and because for the next decade we're not going to see these characters. I mean, I think that's what my takeaway from Star Wars Celebration is let's celebrate these characters one last time because they are a thing of the past. At least when it comes to the next decade of films, you might get more Rey, Finn, and Poe. But your OG characters, they're not really a priority in this next decade. Let's get away. Let's tell new stories in this Star Wars universe.
And you know what? I'm kind of okay with that because we've had a lot of Skywalker over the last 45 years or so. And it's time to look and see what else is out there in the galaxy.
I think it's interesting how this teaser, though, David, starts with her breathing, where when I think back at like the first thing we saw for Last Jedi, it's her like kind of like breathing. It looked like a space. It comes to the rock. She's breathing very heavily. You know, Luke is kind of like talking to her with the voiceover.
Even telling her to breathe.
And here she is. She's, you know, taking these deep breaths. You hear Luke voicing over there, great voiceover there by Mark Hamill, just saying, like, you know, thousands of years of lessons of the Jedi. They're in you now. Like, she has learned. There is a gained knowledge in this year that separates the Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker.
So we do know that it's 1 year gap between the two movies.
We do know it's a 1 year gap. And what we're getting here in the opening scene is a Rey trying to get her breath. We're trying to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of speculation that this is actually a dream sequence. We get her standing here, I'm assuming is Jakku. We cut to the slide that says, every generation has a legend. We go back to this desert world. Again, I assume is Jakku. Some people want it to be Tatooine. That's fine. Then we get this like TIE interceptor screeching. I'm calling it a TIE interceptor. Screeching through. It kind of looks like Kylo's TIE silencer, but there is a lot of red on that cockpit, which makes me feel like it's not hit. Maybe it is. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. We'll see the movie the first time on December 20th. But I'm telling you, David, Kylo Ren is in that ship. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. If this is not a dream sequence and it's a showdown, then it's got to be Kylo Ren.
Do you agree? Do you buy that though because of how this plays out with Rey doing this incredible force jump from behind, like getting a head start, running behind? I mean, to me, this fuels like that speculation that Ben could redeem and team up with Kylo or team up with Rey.
I don't want redemption.
I know, but if you look at this, David, like you have to get the sense that you look at those gloves. I think the assumption is those are Kylo's gloves. She does this incredible backflip to land on top of this TIE, whatever.
Which looks really badass, by the way.
Like Matrix-like?
I'm down for it.
It works for me. The speed in which it happens. Maybe they slowed it down for the teaser, but if that's what happens like in the movie, that's why I buy this being some kind of like vision or force sequence. I don't know. I hope this isn't the thing where like they're teleporting themselves to a different planet to do their training. I don't know. We don't need any repeat there. That's just a wild guess and not a very good one. My point is though, I just don't think this is real as far as like Star Wars goes. Like I don't think this is a real event. I think this is a
dream, an imagination sequence of some sort.
Right, because the only other way, like I said, the only other way I see something like this happening would be if they learned how to, transmit their image across the galaxy. But I don't think that Rey or Kylo, based on what we know from The Last Jedi, has the strength to do that. I don't think they could have learned how to do that in a year. I think that's what separates Luke from these two characters. Luke is that much stronger than the rest. So that's just my take on that. But yeah, we get the flip. We get this awesome backflip scene where she mounts it. And then we get the next black screen where it says, this Christmas. And then we kind of go into a sequence of shots, David, and walk me through this. We got like this blue planet with clouds with the ship going through. We got Kylo taking the blunt end of his saber hilt and just pummeling this dude to the ground.
Which is awesome. I feel like we're going to get a lot of action out of this movie. And maybe we won't have too many of those board meeting scenes like we got out of the prequels.
Does it bring you joy to see Kylo Ren, we're assuming Kylo Ren, melding his helmet back together?
It does, because to me that's him. Well, I mean, first of all, it's amazing that he still has like the broken helmet to weld back together as opposed to just getting a new one. But to me, that's him doubling down his commitment to the dark side, to wanting to have absolute rule over everybody, that he goes back to that original Kylo Ren that honored his grandfather, Darth Vader, with the helmet. Gets us to the point, to me, where he's matured enough where he doesn't care what anybody else thinks, because he kind of smashed the helmet after Snoke called him out about it, being a child and not having an identity and having to take his grandfather's. So to me, that's him doubling down on him being a bad guy. And since I have no desire for a redemption story, to me that's perfect. That's him saying, "Yes, we're taking this bad guy philosophy to the grave, maybe quite literally by the end of the movie."
To me, it's a symbol or a demonstration, rather, of how Kylo is trying to do it his way. Where I think that Kylo has been pushed to his limits as far as trying to find the right source for ultimate power. He thought, I think, at a time that Luke was going to be the source to give him these incredible skills, talents, gifts, whatever you want to call them, source of knowledge. And he felt betrayed by Luke. And then he goes to Snoke and thinks that Snoke is going to give him all this unlimited power. And Snoke is just manipulating because he wants the power of the blood of Skywalker. Okay, so it's not really Kylo that he wants. He's more so looking at the power that is Luke. So Luke is, again, Luke has done something since Return of the Jedi that is so great the galaxy is aware of his strength. But I think the helmet for Kylo is a symbol of I'm doing it my way. And I think that we have reason to believe that Kylo is going to be caring more again about the Sith artifacts in this movie. We have, tidbits, leaks of information to believe that's the case. And so I really look forward to seeing how a Kylo on the mend acts in this movie because that helmet is his image. I've said it a few times. I think that he should never have revealed his face until The Last Jedi. I think it should have stayed the helmet. He is the most intimidating with that helmet on. When that helmet is off, he is just a boy. And so I'm really excited to see that it be repaired. I do want to go back. David, did you notice that the first shots of the sequence, and again, we get, the ship flying into this like blue, this cloudy blue area. Maybe it's underwater. I'm not quite sure. You have Kylo fixing the helmet. You have Lando and Chewbacca going to hyperspace. You get a shot of Poe and Finn. That first scene, though, David, is getting a lot of speculation because some are saying this is the same ship that we see blasting off of Jakku in Rey's Force vision from The Force Awakens.
This is the one right after this Christmas where it's going through the mountains and such.
Yeah.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that. That'd be maybe they're just giving us a trailer full of like dreams and visions as opposed to anything that's going to happen, to move the plot forward. But that'd be cool.
I'm fine with a Force vision of telling what actually happened. I don't know how or who gives that. I don't know. I mean, maybe like, I don't know. I don't want to speculate and be like, well, Maz actually makes a return and it has that vision, but that makes no sense.
So, David, do you think that Snoke telling Rey that her parents were nobodies? I guess it wasn't Snoke; it was Kylo. Tells her that her parents were nobodies and that they just dumped her on a planet. Do you think that's true, or do you think that JJ is going to revisit that and that's going to be one of the twists and turns in the plot?
I think there's more to the story because that's the exact quote that JJ gave at Star Wars Celebration. He's not going to retcon, he says, anything that Ryan did with The Last Jedi, but he did say that there is more to the story and that will be explored. And so I look forward to seeing and hearing what that more is because, one thing is we're speculating that's the same ship. It might not be the same ship. For all we know, there are some similarities, and I want to correct myself. It's like mountainous and foggy. They're not underwater, so I misspoke earlier, but it's a cool looking shot. There seems to be like trees and such. Maybe there's foliage. I don't know. This could be an Endor scene. This could be a Kashyyyk scene. I'm not quite sure, but there is a lot of excitement around this scene, thinking that it could be the return of that ship, and of course unlocking maybe some secrets regarding the patronage of Rey. David, Rey or Poe and Finn seem to be on this like desert skiff chase thing with C-3PO.
We know that they spent a lot of time filming in Jordan and around Petra over the last few months because some of the other places like Tunisia that they used to film at have been a little more politically unsafe to go. Do you think, David, that this is going to take us to Tatooine, or do you think this is back to oh shucks, maybe I forget the name. Jakku. Yep.
I think it's definitely back to Jakku. I would be fine with a return to Tatooine. I just don't know if it's necessary. I feel like there's so much placed back on Jakku. And listen, we've avoided it until now. Obviously, the reveal of this teaser, David, is not a voiceover from Mark Hamill. It's not Rey with the lightsaber. It's that cackle at the end. The Emperor is
Yes,
back.
I love it.
And we know that from Chuck Wendig's Aftermath. We know the trilogy. We know from a few other sources in Star Wars canon that Jakku was of intrigue to the Emperor. He was doing like excavating, or at the least he was like looking for artifacts. There was, I believe, a Jedi temple on Jakku. I think it was I think it was a Sith temple that was on Jakku or whatnot, and
Which would be really cool.
And so I think that I think with that information, I think you can assume safely that you're going back to Jakku. Something's going on there. Now, I say that, and I immediately go, oh, David, you shouldn't have said that. You got to take it all away. You got to take that all back because of another shot that has a lot of controversy, especially out of Star Wars Celebration. The Rule of Two podcast has been around for several years, and I talked to these guys Saturday night at Star Wars Celebration. There was like a after party Saturday night where all the podcasters got together at this ARC bar. And there's like six or I think there's like 5 or 6 different podcasts that are sitting around this charcoal pit, and they're passing these microphones, and they're speculating on this scene that we see where it's what we assume is Finn, Poe, Rey, C-3PO, D-O, the new droid with BB-8, Chewbacca, and they're all on this like grassy plain, and they're like looking out, and then the next shot is this like big fierce waves, and then you see what looks to be a part of the top hemisphere of a Death Star.
Ooh.
And to me, this was my favorite scene in the whole teaser because this is, I mean, how can you not get excited about seeing that's a shattered version of the dish? I think the assumption is this is the second Death Star.
So we're back on Endor then?
Well, possibly this could be Endor. So in Return of the Jedi, remember, we were on the forest moon of Endor. We've never seen Endor
Itself. Okay.
So my theory. So here's what I was trying to make the point at Celebration. I think I'm gonna buy that it's the second Death Star, and I'm gonna buy that this is either the moon of Endor or Endor. I like the idea that this thing exploded. I like the thing that parts crashed down. You could sell me on that this is the forest moon and that an object so large crashes down into a planet and it changes, alters the climate. I could buy into that.
David, if we get Ewoks, I will be so happy.
Will that be forced? You always talk about forced fan service.
I don't think it'll be forced. I mean, I would take it either way because I love the Ewoks.
I had a friend in college like that too. Anyways, my point being here is that I ship that we are going back to Endor in some sense here. And I think that's a great way of tying all the movies back together. Let's go back to a semi-familiar place. But it's speculated that the Emperor has some kind of connection to the Death Star itself. Like, I don't want to say like a Horcrux from Harry Potter, but somehow Siths are able to attach themselves to objects. We see this in the Vader series with the Momin mask. Something similar maybe here to the Death Star. Or is there something that's in the wreckage here of the Death Star that we must seek out?
A little piece of me, David, kind of wonders if the Emperor has learned how to make himself come back from beyond the grave. Like we know that we have Qui-Gon's voice, and then we get Force ghosts of Yoda and Obi-Wan and Anakin. And Anakin probably wouldn't have learned that while he was a Jedi. He probably would have learned that while he was a Sith. In order to be able to maintain that power, in order to come back in the end of Return of the Jedi. So if Anakin has been able to figure this out, maybe there's a chance that the Emperor has too, which to me would be really, really fascinating if he came back as a Force ghost and it turned out he was manipulating Snoke or Kylo Ren the whole time.
Do you like the idea? There is a theory out there, and I mean, you see the teaser. It's fun to just let your imagination run wild. But for some reason, the lightsaber of Vader is a like kind of like a MacGuffin. For some reason, we need to find Vader's saber. Do you feel like that's it? To me, it kind of feels like the reverse of what we had with the Skywalker Hilton 7. But do you like that being a story point, or do you feel like do you feel like that's
No,
stretching?
I feel that's stretching it. If they're going to go on some sort of a hunt for an object, I would much rather it be some sort of a temple or a holocron somewhere, or finding some remnants within the Jedi Temple. I mean, holocrons are something that we see all over the Star Wars universe in the comics, the books, the video games, except for the canon movies. So it'd be kind of neat if we could actually see one of those on the movie screen in order to add that into mainstream continuity. Because I firmly believe that while there's all sorts of great content out there, you shouldn't have to go to that in order to understand what's going on in the Star Wars universe, because this is by and large a movie franchise.
what what is the right way to introduce the Emperor in Episode 9? So you hear the cackle, right? But you often hear people say, "Well, if it's done right, then it's great." Well, isn't that the whole point?
It's to try to do it right.
Like that's a stupid comment to make. Well, if it's done right, well, of course, if it's done right, then it'll be great because it'll satisfy what you want. You introduced the cackle. Ian McDermott at Celebration revealed that was actually a recording of his cackle from a previous film, and so there's some is he a hologram only? Is he a holocron only? Or is he in the flesh somehow? Or is he in the spirit form? What's done right here with the Emperor, David?
David, for me, being done right with the Emperor would be something in a ghost form. He, being strong with the dark side, figured out how to do that, while the light side also figured that out as well. And I don't want to sound cheesy with my next statement, but almost I want to see like Kylo Ren with the little angel on his left shoulder and the little devil on the right shoulder. Maybe Luke comes back as a Force ghost because, of course, at the end of The Last Jedi, he, kind of arrogantly dusts off his shoulder and says, "See you around, kid," before he fades away and what we presume fades into the Force. But it'd be kind of neat if he was trying to harass Kylo into, doing certain things and being that compass of morality. And then when he's not around, you get the Emperor who's coming back saying, this is the way to do it. This is how you be strong with the Force. This is how you be better and stronger than your grandfather because you're better than him. And really have the Emperor kind of take on Kylo as a Sith apprentice from beyond the grave. To me, that's how I would love to see it done. Alternatively, and this wouldn't be my ideal, but we know that after the space opera scene in Revenge of the Sith, that Palpatine tells a story about Plagueis coming back, and I've been a big proponent of Plagueis being the overarching villain who ends up making a show, and he kind of set this whole thing up with he manipulated the Emperor, who then manipulated everybody else. But it doesn't sound like we're going to get that. But maybe if he really did figure out how to come back from the dead, maybe it would be cool to see him back in the flesh again. But if you do that, David, how do you kill him off after one movie? Wouldn't that be a reveal that you would want at the end of the second movie, and then the whole third movie is trying to figure out how to conquer that hurdle, that villain?
I'm not sure how you could, because like you're saying, it's such a quick reintroduction, which is why my mind goes, he's not going to be utilized as much. But at the same time, if you're going to bring back the Emperor, he's now the ultimate baddie. Like, Snoke is nothing compared to the Emperor.
Which I'd be okay with.
Kylo now has an excuse not to be the baddie. I want him to be the baddie. But if the Emperor is involved now, Kylo doesn't even compare. Now Kylo might be out of depth. He might be scared now. He might realize that the only way to survive is if he acknowledges his sins and asks for forgiveness from Rey and the others. And then they team up trying to defeat the Emperor. I just want to know how.
I don't want it.
The how is the most fascinating thing as far as the Emperor coming back, because how? Clone? I hope not. That happened in the EU. Not a whole lot of people bought that. Some Force wizardry or magic. I'm thinking of something like we saw in Clone Wars. Like how Mother Talzin brings Maul back as far as his lower body, through magic, and how they create, Savage, for example. So
I really liked in the Charles Soule run of Darth Vader how Momin uses Vader and uses his people to create these different versions of a citadel for Vader, but it's all a ruse in order to create a conduit to the afterworld so he can get his physical body back. That to me was really cool. So maybe they'll take us back to Mustafar. So I think there's a lot of different options, David. I think there's a lot of different ways they can take it, and I don't think we're going to figure it out until we see that movie in December. There's one more scene that just absolutely blew me away from the trailer, and that's this loving, touching moment where we see Rey and we see Leia, and they're having a nice hug, and there's some tears involved as well. What are your thoughts on that one, David?
I mean, I think it had to be outrageously hard for Daisy to shoot that scene because at that point, Carrie's dead. And whatever is going to happen with this role, I think it's going to be well done. You can only do so much when the person who plays this beloved character is no longer with us. But you could, that emotion that was displayed there, that felt raw. I mean, I don't think that was Carrie Fisher and that embrace with her. I think that was someone else. And I'm excited to see how that plays out. I mean, that's the thing is, this teaser did exactly what you wanted it to do. It teased every major speculation going into this final film. Whether, is Luke around? Yeah, probably as like that spirit from the great beyond. Rey is more powerful. Not Luke. Kylo is far more intense, stronger, fiercer, conflicted. You get Lando back. You get one of the OGs back in the seat wearing the same clothes he had in Solo, which I don't really buy. I mean, who wears the same clothes 40, 50 years later,
Especially when, you've thickened up a little bit. People get a little softer and bigger as they get older.
I feel like if Lando is so fashionably in tune, then he would not be maintaining that style. But I digress.
Unless Retro's coming back, David.
You know what? With this teaser, it certainly does seem so. Would you not agree?
I very much would.
It definitely feels like a throwback in a lot of ways. I'm very happy just overall. And like you had asked me, it had to be like a hard scene for Daisy to shoot, knowing that Carrie's dead and all such. But like the teaser did exactly what I needed it to do, which was show me images of all my questions, and I think the bulk or the essential ones will get answered in this in this movie. And before my final question, so two more questions, David. I want to throw it back to you. Does seeing Lando in the cockpit, does that do anything for you emotionally?
Not particularly, David. As we talked quite a bit when Solo came out last year, Lando to me was a fun character, but he wasn't a very... I didn't get attached to him like a lot of people do. He was not, somebody I was overly excited about. I think he served his role. I think Billy D. Williams did a good job, but he wasn't like a Han Solo or a General Tarkin or even a Boba Fett that really wormed their way into my heart throughout the series. I felt like he just kind of served his point in the Empire Strikes Back, and then kind of having him back for Return of the Jedi was a nice little fan service to keep him employed, but not necessarily a mandatory thing to have that character do that particular function. How about you?
For me, it was great, but I'm still super nervous because I'm scared that they brought him back just to kill him off, which is really upsetting to me. But I have optimism. I like seeing him back in the cockpit with Chewie. I think it'd be really cool if he could survive, and then he could keep the Falcon, and they kind of go off. I would be fine if we're not gonna play with these characters for another decade. Let all these characters just go off and be happily ever after. There's some great conquest, and then they just kind of go off, and then they just do their thing, and you just kill them off however you want to in a book or a comic.
So maybe we'll get a Disney Plus streaming service series, The Wild Adventures of Chewie and Lando, with the subtitle Straight from the Nursing Home or something like that.
Sure. My last question for you is, as we conclude our conversation, and again, so thankful that you're joining us in the Star Wars Conversation, episode 63, He is Risen. It's the Rise of Skywalker Easter special, where we're just talking about our reaction to the teaser, what we liked about it, our speculation about what's to come. And that's what this last question's about, David. Because we have this first teaser, we would anticipate that maybe we get some behind-the-scenes footage at D23, or a behind-the-scenes feature in the near future. But there will be an actual trailer for the movie to drop in the next couple of months. And so what do we think we see next? What is the next we see? The next reveal.
The next reveal, oof, that's a good one, David. I think that coming off of the fun but flop of Solo and the very mixed reactions that the fan base seems to have about The Last Jedi, I think whatever we get next is going to continue to play on the fan service, bringing us back to things from the original trilogy, bringing us back to things from the prequel trilogy. I think that they're going to try to milk this excitement, this train. I think they're going to try to play on nostalgia as much as they can. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, David, that they're going to take some risks in this movie. They have to, and Star Wars has always done that. From casting Alec Guinness, this world-class actor, next to a nobody at the time, Mark Hamill, next to a carpenter set man, Harrison Ford, to even in The Last Jedi taking some risks with new characters and subplots that don't go anywhere, but they try, and different visual stuff. So they've got to do something that's really going to wow us, and I know that they're going to do that. But I think in order to get the hype train up and get the fan base all excited for it, they have to play off that nostalgia.
I think that we're going to get an image of Palpatine. I think that's going to happen. If we don't get an image of Palpatine, I would like to think the Force Ghost of Luke. There's a real option for that. My only thing is, with those two reveals that I just mentioned, is it better served in the trailer, or is it better served to wait until the movie? So you're in the movie theater, and the first time you get to see the reveal of Luke's Force Ghost, Rey is talking to herself in disbelief or in frustration, and Luke, why couldn't you have taught me this? And then he's like, well, I tried to, but I was blind or something. He reveals himself. And the same thing with the Emperor, right? Like, is it better to show you the form that you'll get the Emperor? I would imagine of the two, that would be the one that would be held until the movie. But maybe I'm wrong.
I agree. I mean, if they give us everything in the trailer, there's no reason to go see the movie.
And that's valid. And I just wanted to stay away from like the generic statements where it's like, oh, well, we'll get, longer bits of the scenes that we've already seen. Like, that's common sense stuff. Like, maybe we'll see some new ships. I'd like to see some space battle sequences. That'd be fun. But you know what, honestly, David, no matter what we get, we're going to be excited about. I don't see us complaining about getting more footage, seeing more what this movie is about. I'm just really thankful that today we got some time to visit about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, man. I've had a blast with you.
Thanks, David. I've enjoyed it too.
Oh, that sounded so genuine.
It is genuine.
We have to get on the road. It's Easter. We need to go spend time with our family and friends, and that means you do as well. So once again, just want to thank you for joining us for the Star Wars conversation. Again, we just wanted to hop on here and talk about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and some stuff we saw at Star Wars Celebration. Something more in-depth coming in the very near future, but a reminder again, a big thanks to our sponsor, the Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri, proudly serving the St. Louis area since 1981, a proud sponsor of our show. And of course, if you didn't know already, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, as well as additional content on patreon.com/Beyond the Blast Doors. That's it for episode 63. He is risen. Enjoy the Easter pun. Enjoy your holiday. Enjoy your week. We will see you very soon here on Beyond the Blast Doors.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.